Alright, I plan to teach my friends on how to do some blendering. So, first of all, you need to add a cube and then rotate it on the z-axis 45 degrees. If this isn't open, you push N. Now, we need to scale it along the y-axis or the x-axis only. So let's push tab to go into edit mode. A to deselect all, then you push B. Cursor will change like this. You click and drag, select those, and you select those. Scale, X, and there we go. Now, my controls are a bit weird. I went into File, User Preferences, Input, 3D View. I made it to select with left. I'm using the turntable orbit style. And in 3D View, 3D manipulator to left mouse, set 3D cursor to middle mouse, rotate view to right mouse, move view to shift right mouse. That way, I use a right click to rotate everything. Also, once you have that set, then if you save as default, then it will appear exactly how Blender is right now, including that. Also, over here, you go to scene, and then you can change it to metric. You can change things by meters and stuff. Alright, next what we want to do, select nothing, B, and select the top. Now you can use the arrows to move it up and down, or you can push G to grab, and you can lock it to a certain direction. Using Y, X, and Z. So we'll want to size that up. Now, let's push E to extend. This basically makes new vertices sticking out of where your old vertices were. So place that there. Now push S and push it in to size it down. Push E again. Size it down even more. E again. And this time, let's see. It's Alt M, and then you can merge at center. Now it's pointed. This looks like a skimpy little dagger, but still. It's a weird shape. And the blade's not very long. Now tab and go back into object mode. You can smooth this or just shade it differently. Now what we need to do, add a new cube. And let's go into edit mode. This time, with the entire thing selected, you can push A to deselect all or select all. Scale along the y-axis. Alright. Now, down here, this will allow you to either select vertices. If you hold Shift, you can select multiple ones. If you hold Alt, you can select an edge, I guess. Or I think that's a loop. And I think Control... No. Oh. You can edge select, where you select the edges. push X to Lily, but that we don't want to do that right now. Then you can go to face select. Select both the faces, hold shift, and then select that one. That way you can select multiple. Then what we want to do is somehow scale them. Ah, I know what I forgot. First of all, select the entire thing. Along here, we need to subdivide it. And that will cut it into multiple pieces. Or, see how that makes pluses there. That might not be the best way to subdivide. So instead, with it all selected, push Control R. This will allow you to do a loop cut and cut things in half-ish. So I could put that there, but I want it exactly in the middle. Now that that's happened, go back to face select, select our faces, and well, we want X and Z, but not on the Y. So let's scale that down. Now scale on the Y. And there's our guard. Next, add cylinder. Now there's quite a few different shapes. I'll be showing all of them. Alright. This thing looks very derpy. Quite derpy indeed. It's a bit of a derpy sword. That's because I didn't measure things out. Dimensions. For example, this is 2 meters thick. It's an awfully large sword. Alright, now add... We need mesh. A UV sphere would probably be better than the eco. And drag that down. Maybe size it down a bit. And there we go. Now, if you hold shift and select all these objects, actually, what you want to do is select all the objects and select the handle last. Now Control J and you'll join them. And notice how when you try to move it, the positioning thing is in the handle. That's why you select the handle last. It becomes the parent of all these. So yeah, and there's our very derpy sword, but that's a simple way to learn basic modeling. Now, there's a ton of other things you could do. There's also metaballs, which are weird. These things, like let's tab, select this ring. You could size it up, or you could select the inner ring. Now, it doesn't have that much effect when you only have one, but think of this stuff like clay. It's basically clay. When you move them close together, they attach to each other and like form and mold. Now, if you go into tab, the whole point of this ring is the size. This one, well, you could change on both these rings will affect like how different they attach to each other. So we don't really need those right now. There's quite a few things you could do. First of all, I'll show you UV wrapping and texturing. So what we want to do first, size this up and open this up. We want to go to UV image editor. Next, you'll want to go into that mode and select the entire thing. Now you'll notice that a cylinder and sphere have an awful lot of vertices. So you want to watch how many vertices there are, because if you get too many, it will cause lag. Now, there's a better way to do this, but the easiest way is to just do a smart UV project, click OK, and there you go. You have it all flattened out. However, see that some of the objects are off the map? This isn't the best way. Create a new image. Usually you want 1,000 by 1,000, basically. Most textures are, like Skyrim, for instance, would be like 2,000 by 2,000. But keep it a square of 8 number. Notice how there's a 24 after the 1,000. Next, now these UVs, let's zoom out, select all of them, scale them down. Okay, we don't want to do that. Now, we need to move them all. Not sure if there's a way to do that. Oh yeah, G, grab. Center, scale it up, grab again with G, center, scale up. You want to make sure that everything is in the border. So obviously this is the guard. This would be the top of the blade here. That would be the sphere. That's the cylinder. I guess that's another piece of the guard maybe? And then you have all the pieces from the cylinder there. Now what you can do is image. There's a way to do this. UVs. Now, all right. We could save as image, and we'll just save it as a default image. I have a nice menu on my games, recording equipment, editing, and programming stuff, communications, just random garbage. Okay, our image is pure black, because as you see, we haven't really put anything in there. Now what we want to do is actually save the UVs. That way we can use that as guidelines. Export UV layout. Let's name it UVs and export. Now, when we go to check, and then you have that. You can use that as guidelines. You can use fill buckets and stuff. And yeah, you can actually paint it in the thing, but whenever I've tried it, it's kind of quite glitchy. Right clicking is basically like a color dropper, which is weird. I don't quite like that. So if I paint this a bit, so notice how it gets painted there. So that's how to do UV textures. Now to do Blender procedural textures, which is even weirder, go over here, go into materials, create a new material. Now here you can make the shininess of it, change that. You could change the default color, probably a gray. Then once you have a material, you can go into textures and basically just add textures onto it. See, now you get this rough. You can preview it with several things. And you can use this to play around with the different settings. There's quite a few different things that you can do it with. Usually there's a ton of tutorials and stuff that will say on how to make better textures and stuff. You can eventually find them, or you can use your own image. The best idea, probably, is to make the textures how you want it here. Now let's make another texture. This one, we don't want to use the color from it. Instead, we'll use the normal maps. Now, it's kind of hard to see, but you see how it's all bumped up here? It makes a bump map for it. Let's make it a bit rougher. Well, we don't actually want it rough because it's a blade. Put it in. Wow, that looks weird. Oh my. Yeah, you definitely don't want to overdo it with normal maps. And you could do other stuff like specular maps, which only changes like the shininess of it. It's very hard to notice, but you can sort of see it. Alright, make it shinier. Next is an interesting trick to get things out of Blender. Next, you want to go down to Bake. It's in the first thing, Render. Now, here's all the stuff you could do. First, obviously, we want the textures. So, let's go back to our image, our UV, and let's bake to it. There we go. Now you can save this. Now, say if you wanted to import the bump maps into another game engine, then you'd bake the normals. Save as bump. Save as image. And there we go. Now, on your computer, you'll have the colors, the bump maps, and guidelines for if you want to do your own manual editing. You can use Photoshop or GIMP or something to use these as guidelines. And yeah, that's the basis of what I know about Blender. There's so much more you can do with it. You can actually do video editing, animations. Actually, I do know how to do animations, but I guess I could show that. All right, let's say, first, let's use automatic keyframe editing. Now what we want to do is move this to 100. Actually, first what you want to do is go to number 1 and create a new... actually, notice this? You could change this to do various stuff. Actually, no, that's not it. That's it. You have default game logic scripting. Like here's a UV editing mode. Make it easier to edit your UV maps. Game logic for if you're using the Blender game engine. I'd rather use different games engines though. The Blender game engine's really good for graphics, but when it comes to using user friendliness, it's not the best. Alright, now this is where you really want to do it. Here, you can make a new keyframe. So first, we're going to want to make, well, a basic keyframe there. I don't think it can make it yet because there's no channels to make it on. Let's push N. And so to make a channel, let's go to keyframe 1. Say if you wanted it to float up and down. Well, you would have the transformed of the Z. Okay. I forget how to do all this. It's been a while. Let's set that to 0. And it's still not 0 anyways. Doesn't matter. Channel. Let's see. And only selected. Now there is a way to do this. No active keyring set. There we go. Wow, this is all the stuff that you can do. Right, location, I guess. I don't know, I used to just right click that and it would work. I'm trying to teach people and I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay, transform, grab, move. I don't know. So yeah, you can move that around if you want. But what you can do, play. Okay, so it's not automatically recording right now, that's why. I thought I set that. Okay. Now I see. You need to be in object mode. Right, let's insert a keyframe there. Notice how it adds all this stuff. Now, let's move to 100. Now, let's insert a new keyframe. This time, move it up a bit. So let's go back and play, and it automatically tweens it. Now what you can do is go back to 1. Push A to deselect all, or select all. And basically, you only want to select the ones on this channel. Copy keyframes. Now we want to go to 200. Key, paste keyframes. Looks like it all didn't get copied properly. Okay. A, B, and X. Let's go back to start. Channel. There should be a way to select after current frame. Invert selection. Okay. Before current frame. There we go. Now, let's copy. And paste the keyframes. That still isn't working. That's really annoying. Like I said, I forget how to do most of this. Alright, key. Select all those. Now, select before current frame. That's why we didn't have all the channels selected. Ugh, that's really annoying. And now, I'm not sure, but yeah, there we go. It flies back down. Now, notice how it does nothing after. That's because we need to change this so that frame 200, it ends. So now that will float up and float down. Float up. Now, say if you wanted to add more than one animation, like you wanted two different animations where if it's pick-upable, then it would float up and down. And if it's only pick-upable by a certain team, you wanted it to spin that way, then you would put the default frame, like how it is now, right about there since it's already at default. Then at like 300, you would put a thing of it being halfway to the animation you want. So you would just add more animations onto this timeline. If you were doing it in Blender, then you could do something else like making multiple animations, but if you're exporting it to another game engine, you'll have to put it all in one big animation. So once that's done, go back to defaults, and it's all good. Now, notice how you have a camera and light. You can actually go to render, and you can render your thing, and it will render it with textures and everything. You can change the position of the camera and light. If you wanted to render your animation, then you'd do this, but as you see, it renders it pretty slowly. You could change some render settings like this. It would render it like a lot faster but not look as good. Like look how the edges are jagged and stuff. Most animators who make like movies and stuff, animated movies, it will take them ages to render stuff. And most video cards like the NVIDIA Quadro, they're like $4,000. They aren't made for gaming, they're made for doing this kind of stuff. So like say Toy Story, that would have taken ages of tons of computers working together to do this. Since I'm just making a sword float up and down, it's doing it decently fast, but it's still going to take a while. And escape to close that. Alright, I guess that's all. You can save. And that's all the basics of Blender. Good luck.